It's week 4. It's Indy. It's real. Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Trojan.
Out there, let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Trojan, and this is RamView, the September 29th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. All right, it is the Friday show before week 4, and we are excited to be here. It's a beautiful, gloomy, overcast day here in Southern California. Perfect weather to let you know that it is football season. I'm excited. The other day, I put a question on Rams Rule. It's a really good message board for Rams fans, and I've only been turned on to it these last few months, but it's a really good site, ramsrule.com. And I posed a question about Stafford being too obedient to McVay's play calling, and the responses I got back were interesting. And you asked for a response, you should share the responses that people give you. And the arguments coming back to me were that Stafford and McVay are in agreement. They're both pass happy, and that Stafford was good with all the play calling, even after what we saw on Monday night. Another argument was that McVay sent in the plays and Stafford audibled out of them because he's pass happy. I lean, and I shared this in Wednesday show, that McVay made the calls and Stafford followed his coach, because we saw this in McVay during 2019 when things got a little sketchy there for a while with the offensive line. He just got really pass happy. And even though Gurley was on the downside of his career, the Rams weren't running the ball at all. In fact, today's the anniversary of that 55-40 game with the Buccaneers that I think Marcus Peters had a pick six, just before we trade him. But Ndamukong Suh had that scoop and score. If we remember that game, 55-40 in 2019. Today is that 4-year anniversary of that. So I thought it was really cool just to hear other people's responses. That I can definitely see Stafford kind of saying, "Yeah, I go with my coach. I want to throw the ball," because I think Stafford suffers from PTDS. Post-traumatic Detroit syndrome, and that PTDS causes him to revert to, hey, I'm just going to pass my way out of this. But then there's the other part of me that thinks, shouldn't Stafford know he's getting his butt kicked? It's not a competent NFL tackle that's at left tackle there that's having a rough go. It is a completely novice left tackle there in Zachary Thomas, and he was just getting hammered. And again, miracle of all miracles. We hated the loss. We hated a lot of things, but the fact that Stafford is not on the injured list, that is really, really good news. Okay, we'll keep mowing along and going along here. I appreciate everyone participating. I won't diminish any of your thoughts. They're all appreciated. Okay, around the NFL, Lions beat the Packers 34-20. It was a great win for Detroit. We said they had to play some big boy football. Think about 3 of the Detroit's last, 4 wins, I think, have been they've won twice in Lambeau, and they've also won in Green Bay. In KC. And so really, I think you're really starting to see a culture change there. You've got a heck of a GM in Brad Holmes, Ram pedigree, and you've got Dan Campbell, who I was laughing at some of the KBM media we're talking about other KBM media for Dan Campbell's, biting the kneecaps. But the funny thing was, the same ones that are ridiculing other parts of the Kiss Butt media, they were part of the kiss butt media that was ripping Dan Campbell for his bite him in the kneecaps conversation there. Lions are really easy to root for, and I hope they do well. If this isn't the Rams year, I'd love to see the Lions do well. The one thing that did make me very curious last night was all those blue jerseys in Lambeau, and I'm curious if that was because they talked about this was the game. They have 2 games a year where they open it up to Milwaukee residents to have first bid on some of these season seats for 1 game or 2 games, because they used to play games down at Milwaukee County Stadium. And I remember that. But are those Milwaukee fans selling their tickets? Because I don't see Green Bay fans, people who live in Green Bay, selling those seats to some out-of-town visiting team or an out-of-town visiting rival. That was just a lot of blue there, a lot of blue. Continuing with the Packers, I don't think Jordan Love is bad at all, but I think you're going to have another year to find out if he is anything special. And that's awkward because this quarterback draft class that's coming out this year is pretty special. And if the Packers miss the playoffs, this quarterback draft goes almost 7 deep. They might still have to draft a quarterback, maybe Bo Nix. I don't know. We'll think about it. The Lions, hey, good for those former Rams, huh? Jared Goff, Josh Reynolds. This Jared Goff is the Jared Goff the Rams had in 2018, not the one they had in 2019 and 2020, who seemed to lose his confidence. And he looks like he's having fun. And how awful the day you find out you're being traded to Detroit, but how wonderful that you stuck it out in that 3rd year. You're starting to see the progress because they got the right head coach, they got the right GM, and they got a pretty good plan. Also, the Josh Reynolds I saw last night, was that the Josh Reynolds that played with the Rams from 2017 through 2020? That is not the Josh Reynolds I saw. That catch he made when Goff pivoted and pirouetted out of the pocket, rolling to his left, and then threw back downfield, and Reynolds extended for that catch. That I don't remember Josh Reynolds making that kind of a catch, and it gives me hope for Van Jefferson. Anyway, I digress. Green Bay did close the gap, but this game never felt in doubt. And the Packers, the Lions are by far the superior team in the NFC North. And here's the funny thing. Being the best team in the NFC North doesn't put you too far behind being maybe one of the better teams in the NFC. We've shared. 49ers have some holes. The Eagles have not played up to par. There could be room here for the Lions if they stay away from injuries and keep progressing. Also, it was interesting to see former Ram Justin Hollins, who I really believed in, out there for the Packers last night, getting 13 snaps. Speaking of the Packers, bad news. They could not protect Jordan Love at all last night. And worse was David Bakhtiari today was placed on the IR. He had ortho surgery, and there's a good chance he doesn't see the field this year. So that one has to sting for the Packers. And you have to wonder, it's like, okay, this is not our year, and maybe we miss the playoffs. And that bodes well for week 9 when the Rams go to Lambeau, that this is the time we get them. Jalen Waddle is playing on Sunday. Jordan Poyer, safety for the Bills, is out in the Bills-Dolphins matchup, which really should be flexed to Sunday night, but I think it's too early in the year. Deshaun Watson, that news came out just a little while ago. His banged shoulders, not doing well. DTR is getting first-team reps, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson likely could be the starter when Cleveland faces Baltimore this Sunday. Jimmy G is still in concussion protocol, and what a lousy time to be a Raider fan, right? And I have to ask, is it really going to be Brian Hoyer, or are you going to give us something fresh like Aiden O'Connell? I know if I was a Raider fan, I'd be asking for Aiden O'Connell. Going to Brian Hoyer would be like the Rams calling up John Wolford and say, hey, man, we could use you right now. Speaking of the Raiders, Chandler Jones, who's been an enigma and been Weirdo-Rama this year, posted that weird video yesterday on Twitter, if you saw it. Well, he was arrested, and yeah, just another Raiders whiff, right? He had 10.5 sacks his last year in Arizona. I think that was 21. And that was the year everyone was all excited. Everyone was all hot with the Cardinals. I think they won all those opening games. What did they win? Their first 10 games or something. And He had 10.5 sacks that year, but 5 of them were week 1 against Tennessee. And he didn't produce much after that. But he got a 2-year contract, 3-year contract with the Raiders. And right now, he's on track next year to be a 20 rock cap hit if he comes back. And if he doesn't come back, he's a 12.2 rock dead cap hit. So, they're paying a lot for Chandler Jones. 15 games last season, 4.5 sacks. Dude's toast. You hope the best for him because he seems like he's got some issues. Question came to me, and I'll talk about it right now. Tim Burns, thank you for clicking on. Jordan's not McLovin, IG. There you go. Tim Burns, go Goff. I know Tim Burns out there in NorCal, big Ram fan. He is very pro-Goff, not necessarily the anti-Stafford, but maybe not as enamored with Stafford as the way the guy who runs the RamView show is. Hey, getting into a little Ram talk ahead of time here. Jonathan Taylor just keeps popping up in all my different feeds. This is my beef about Jonathan Taylor. It's not really a beef. It's just my thoughts. If the Rams really think they're ready to rumble this year, are they really ready to compete? I'm going to turn the Cincy game into an anomaly, a brain freeze, just something that happened. And I'm going to measure the Rams on how there was just a couple of mental errors in that game against Frisco when we lost by a touchdown. If that's our standard that we think we can compete with Frisco, maybe Jonathan Taylor is a good move. If we think we compete against the Lions, maybe Jonathan Taylor's a good move. If we think we can compete against Philly, and we're going to find that out in a couple weeks, maybe Jonathan Taylor's a good move. But if not, then Jonathan Taylor's not a good move. So if you think you can rumble this year, then yeah, Jonathan Taylor, I think, okay, great. I'd rather hold on to the draft picks, but I'm not against trading the draft picks if the Rams really think they're ready to compete this year. And I don't think they are. I think they're slowly lifting a window to compete, but I don't think that window is going to be open by the time we get to November, December this year on whether or not we're going to be competing for a Super Bowl. I'm optimistic as all get out. And I can flirt with fanboy and say horns up and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is, I want to see this team get 9 wins. I want to see it in the hunt for a wild card berth, and that would be a heck of a season, right? And anything more is just gravy. But I don't want to sacrifice anything for a running back. I'm not against trading draft picks. I am in the whole blank them picks as much as anybody. I think there's good wisdom there. But I am against trading picks for a 24-year-old running back who started putting serious tread on his tire as a freshman at Wisconsin. In his career, and I'm going to count those Wisconsin years, Jonathan Taylor's been a workhorse, counting his NFL career. Not last year. He missed the last 6 games last year with an injury. But in 2021, he carried the ball 332 times, all told, in 3 NFL seasons, because he hasn't played yet this year, and 3 college seasons. He's got 1,600 carries, all right? Now, randomly, I grabbed a name. I grabbed Earl Campbell. Now, I'm not saying Earl Campbell is Jonathan Taylor and Jonathan Taylor is Earl Campbell. I'm just talking about snaps, and I'm talking about rush attempts. Earl Campbell, for example, played 4 full years of college, and by the time he finished his 3rd NFL season, kind of a little bit where Jonathan Taylor is, he was at 1,800 snaps, right? Now, Jonathan Taylor only played 3 years in college, but after 3 years in college, 3 years in the pros, missing 7 games or 6 games last year, he's at 1,682. Same amount of time, Earl Campbell is at 1,808. And it was after his 1,808 carries, starting in the 1981 season, that Earl Campbell, after those fantastic first 3 years, suddenly began to look good, not great. And it was just downhill from there. He ran for 1,300 yards in 1981, but those numbers kept decreasing. And eventually, what was he traded to the Saints to reunite with the Bum Phillips? And he was never the same again. Every running back, and Campbell was a big dude, every running back has so many hits in him, And, you think about a guy like Marcus Allen lasting as long as he did. Well, when he was getting jobbed over by Al Davis and for 3 seasons, he wasn't getting a lot of touches. That extended his career to where he could actually contribute to the Kansas City Chiefs up through the mid 90s. There's only a number of hits you get. Lawrence McCutcheon, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, glory years, absolutely outstanding years, 4,000-yard seasons. By 78, he was done. And by 79, Wendell Tyler had the job full time. And so there's just a number of hits. So I'm not for giving up a bunch of draft picks for a running back unless you really think we're ready to go over the top. And you tell me if you think we're ready to go over the top. And just because he wears number 28 and plays for the Colts, it does not mean he's Marshall Faulk. All right, there we go. All right, moving on here. College news. Am I supposed to be worked up about USC, Colorado? If the Buffs win, if Buffalo wins, and I like Buffalo, I like Colorado. I root for the Buffaloes, but if they beat USC, it's because the Trojans blew it. This game shouldn't be close. And I'll give you the reason why it shouldn't be close. Now, will Lincoln Riley listen to me? I don't know. But really, the reason it shouldn't be close is because Marshawn Lloyd should touch the ball 25 times in the backfield. Marshawn Lloyd touches the ball 25 times, and already efficient Caleb Williams will be even more efficient, and this game won't be close. But I don't know if anyone is going to listen to me. All right. Rams news. Rams Tyler Higbee getting a contract extension, 3 years for potentially with incentives up to 30 and 30 and a half rocks. 17 of those are guaranteed. It's not outrageous money, we know. I like Higbee. I don't think he's anywhere near being bad. I like him. He's okay. He's good. Statistically, the greatest tight end in Rams history. So we've had that discussion before. But I also don't think that Tyler Higbee is overall all that great. He turned 30 last January 1st, and before this season is over, he's going to be 31. And he does seem to get banged up a little bit more. And I know he's kind of like I think McVay's in love with him. He's a nice blocker. I don't dislike Tyler Higbee, but my question is, when do we upgrade at tight end? When do we upgrade? When do we get a first-rate tight end in this McVay offense, right? I know Jake Ellenbogen and his show, and sometimes in his posts, he talks about Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts, I like Kyle Pitts in Atlanta, but my problem with him is they don't target him enough. And Kyle Pitts said, Ellenbogen said, imagine Kyle Pitts in this Ram offense. Yeah, I could do that. I can imagine Sam Laporta too. I could imagine a whole lot of tight ends in the Rams offense. I just want to see an upgrade and have that not be it feels like to me, and I'll take correction, that Higbee is a really nice safety valve, third option receiver, and sometimes he breaks free downfield. But I want to see that tight end. Can they go searching for a tight end that's an actual weapon? And just wanted to bring that up. Injury news, injury updates came out. The news on Alaric Jackson is it's a hamstring. He did not practice on Thursday, but McVay earlier in the week said he was day-to-day. That doesn't mean he's not playing, that he didn't practice yesterday. Joe Noteboom was a full participant on Thursday with his tender knee, his tender shoulder, and you have to believe that if there's any hint that Jackson's not going to play, Noteboom will be the starter at left tackle with Ankrum in at right guard. I just kind of want to know what's going on with Kevin Dotson, right? Kevin Dotson is an experienced NFL guard, and I wonder if he's going to be activated this week. Other injuries, Higbee and Skoranek sore Achilles. Puka Nacua, since week 1, has been dealing with the oblique, and that is a really thin injury list, thank goodness. And, of course, Cooper Kupp is expected to return to the field next week. But what return to the field means, return to the field to practice. And I think the Rams are going to be careful how they bring him along. So that should be interesting to see. Cooper Kupp would really add a lot to this team, of course. But I don't know if Cooper Kupp this week is necessary for a win against Indy. In fact, he's not necessary. And so it's good that he's not playing. The Rams made the right move by not dancing and putting him on IR. Colts, Anthony Richardson, as of today, cleared all protocols for concussion, and he is going to start on Sunday. Interesting names for the Colts that did not participate on Thursday. And again, this doesn't mean they're not going to play. But guard Quentin Nelson, the opposite number against Aaron Donald, folks are thinking he didn't practice. He's got a tender toe. And DeForest Buckner, monster DT, he was out with a groin, and that was not something they noticed in the game last week against Baltimore. It happened sometime this week. So we don't know what his status is right now for Sunday. I wouldn't be sorry if either of these guys sat out. And Mike Tirico wants to give the Rams an asterisk because those guys sat out. I'll live with the asterisk. I just want the win, right? Going over the Rams rosters, looking at the receivers, I keep hearing Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua was shown how it is in the NFL this week. That's what I'm hearing. It's among the weakest arguments that I've heard these last few days, that the Bengals adjusted and challenged Nacua, and that's why he didn't have a big game against them. No, the reason why Puka Nacua didn't have a big game against the Bengals was because Stafford was getting hit on his third step, not third second or 2.5 seconds after taking the drop, but on his third step from center, he was under duress that entire second half. And I really don't think any adjustment in some of that zone coverage and some of pressing him and jamming him off the line had any effect on Puka Nacua, as much as Zachary Thomas had an effect on Puka Nacua, as well as Zachary Thomas having an effect on Matthew Stafford, and Zachary Thomas being an early Christmas present to Trey Hendrickson for the Bengals. Call me crazy. Tutu Atwell is proving to be a very, very competent NFL receiver, and I think maybe a little bit more. I tell you, if he has some bust-out games, I want to hear everyone crying about Creed Humphrey. I just want to hear it. And I'll let McVay and LaFleur decide about Van Jefferson's fate. But one thing, the guy's just a ghost. Maybe it's time to give some snaps to Demarcus Robinson, right? He's on the roster. He had a really nice summer. He had a nice preseason. He made some really great catches. He looks like somebody that will compete for the ball. Maybe it's time to start giving some snaps to Demarcus Robinson and say, hey, Van, we love you, boy, but maybe it's time to move on. Higbee, of course, is happy because he's got job security at tight end. But what's interesting, he's almost exclusively getting all the snaps at the tight end spot. Bryson Hopkins has been a target twice this season and not once since week 1, where he caught one pass for 21 yards. His snap counts have gone down from 23 to 9 to 2, and Hopkins is the backup tight end. Davis Allen, the kid from Clemson that people had high hopes for, has 0 snaps on offense this year. People are whining and worried. This started the Jonathan Taylor talk. The Jonathan Taylor talk came up, and people were saying that Kyren Williams hasn't had a run longer than 9 yards. These are Kyren Williams snaps. His attempts have been ball carries of the ball, not snaps. 15, 14, and 10 on Monday night. That's 39 total carries. He has 2 9-yard runs and 1 8-yard run. Can I be honest with you? I don't care if he doesn't break anything longer than a 9-yard run for the rest of the season, if he can at least get 20 carries a game, 25 touches tops, right? I just want to see the Rams banging out consistently a regular running game. And when they have to, they make the adjustments. You make the adjustment when you go against Frisco like they did, and it really worked out. But every game is different. New levels, new devils. Everybody had run on Cincinnati up to that point, and the Rams decided not to run on Cincinnati, and that's where they needed to run the ball. And again, especially when Alaric Jackson goes down, maybe you help restore a little Zachary Thomas's pride and run at Trey Hendrickson. Call me crazy. I don't know. Also, people are saying maybe we'd like to see what Ronnie Rivers and Zach Evans can do. Yes, I'd love to see Ronnie Rivers and Zach Evans worked in, of course. But it's not an issue of Kyren Williams not being able to play. It's an issue of the play calling and not the player, the philosophy of the OC and the HC. And so I'm not ready to move off Kyren Williams. I do think he needs a complement piece to him. I think Jonathan Taylor might be a little expensive. Let's see what we got with Ronnie Rivers. And I kept hearing that Zach Evans was a steal of the draft after it happened. I'm not going to talk about Matthew Stafford. I think Matthew Stafford is just fine. Looking at the offensive line, I repeat, I said this on Wednesday, Zachary Thomas cannot stay on the active roster, right? Cannot. We need to find out what's going on with Kevin Dotson, get him dressed, get him active, and use him when disaster strikes. Of course, Jackson doesn't play. It's going to be Noteboom at left tackle, and let Ankrum and Dotson duke it out at right guard. As I always do, let's be positive. Jackson, Avila, Shelton, Noteboom, Havenstein, right? Jackson, Avila, Shelton, Noteboom, Havenstein. One more time because it smells like touchdowns. Jackson, Avila, Shelton, Noteboom, and Havenstein. And we'll see this Ram team do very well on Sunday. Secondary, again, I've said it, appreciating Russ Yeast and Jordan Fuller. And it's not about the grades. We're seeing more snaps for Quentin Lake, but nothing happening with JJ. And you're wondering, maybe has JJ lost his legs? John Johnson providing experience and maybe some wise counsel, but he's not seeing the field. And I really thought he would see the field. We've talked about Darian Kendrick, Akilla Witherspoon, and Kobe Durant. They're not grading out very well, but you know what? We know what we're seeing. This is not a bad secondary. PFF has the Rams rated as the worst secondary around, or their pass coverage the worst in the NFL, but this is not the worst secondary. Kendrick, Witherspoon, and Durant are doing a good job. In fact, they've played so well that it's interesting that Trey Tomlinson had 3 snaps in Seattle, but he hasn't had a snap since. I think if the coaches felt THT was available and they were struggling out there, THT would be in the game. And he showed he's got a lot of that fire in him too. I think with this Rams secondary, you got Durant almost exclusively. You do have him in the slot, which is a tough position full time. You also have, Kendrick. These are young guys. Witherspoon is looking like Witherspoon, and yeah, nice signing. Off-ball linebackers, Ernest Jones has 184 snaps. Christian Roseboom, 124. It doesn't look like the Rams are anywhere near rolling off of Christian Roseboom. I think the only other one with a snap is Jake Hummel, and he's got 1. But Ernest Jones is quietly having a very good year, even though we're only a month in. Appreciate Ernest Jones. I think as he gains even more confidence, we're going to see better play out of him. We keep talking about life on the edge. Michael Hoyt is the guy that's taking all the heat. I think he's important to the team. I think he's still finding his way. Speed-wise, he has his limitations in space, right? In ISO, he's always going to have those limitations. But the dude went to Brown, right? He went to an Ivy League school. Through experience, he'll play smarter, and that smartness and that intelligence will compensate for the lack of speed. His overall grades are eking up in run protection on the edge, and of course, against the pass. But pass rush. But you're taking a guy that played interior line, 6'4", 6'5", 310. All his life, and now you're asking him to excel in pass coverage, and it's not killing us, but it's not great. But everyone's on Michael Hoyt's case. I can live with Michael Hoyt. Byron Young, I think we've discovered he's a hit, flat out, just waiting for a breakout performance, and that could be this Sunday. Colts left tackle Bernard Raymond is in concussion protocol, and right now he hasn't been cleared. And that might be an opening for Byron Young. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Interior defenders, nothing new there. I've been praising Kobe Turner, the conductor, Aaron Donald, of course, and Jonah Williams. The one that's been a little bit disappointing is Bobby Brown. I was high on him going into this year, but he has not made an impression. When you got his kind of body and when you've got his level of physical ability, it's the motor. And he doesn't just seem to be fire. He doesn't seem to have fire. So we'll move on from there. Okay, it's commercial time. I'm Joe Terosian, and I was a sports writer for 21 years, and now I do RamView, and I write books. My books are available on Amazon, and you can just type in my name, Joe Terosian. Also, I do have a short story coming out, maybe a couple days, on Amazon called Tales from the Ram Cave, and it's a short story, and I encourage you to maybe pick that up. It's only available in ebook form. But I write and I do RamView because it supports me in my day job. I pastor a small church in Burbank Faith Nazarene. And also you can find us on YouTube right here at Burbank Faith Virtual, as well as burbankfaithvirtual.com and Burbank Faith Virtual all over different places of social media. So we ask that you check us out. If you have any questions, let me know. A couple of questions that come in. A couple of people have asked me this, and since we've got a lot of new listeners, and I'm really grateful. Thank you for everybody who's clicked on, who's hit like, who's subscribed, those that have helped us out on Spotify, because our footprint is really poor on Spotify. If you haven't done that, go to Spotify and help us out there, like and subscribe. But questions that come up, and I'll try to answer them one at a time, is do I do betting lines or anything like that? And honestly, folks, I just told you what I do for my day job. I pastor a small church. This isn't a decision necessarily because I'm spiritually opposed to something. I'm not a gambler, period, by nature. But when it comes to sports, I don't know how to gamble. I just don't. I was never in that realm. I was never around somebody that did. I do not know how to read a sporting line. Take them minus the points. Like the Colts are -1.5 against the Rams. I don't know what that means. I know what overs and unders are. And, I'm not opposed to somebody saying your team sucks. I'll bet you a pizza my team wins. I got into a shouting match when I was a teenager with some Dolphin fans. And I said the 49ers were going to kill the Dolphins in the Super Bowl. And I collected $30 on that. But it was like win, lose. It wasn't like point spreads and that kind of stuff. I just don't understand it. I don't know how to do it. I'm not being cute or anything like that. I just don't know. So there you go. I just wanted to get that across to you when you asked me. And I know I'm going to hit a crossroads because I think we're going to continue to be successful with your support. And we know everything in this world when it comes to sports nowadays is involved with gambling and betting and all that kind of stuff. And I could be hurting myself with sponsors that maybe, because I can't tell you to bet if I don't bet. And I don't know what I'm saying when I talk about, betting lines. So that's just one I wanted to make very clear. Hey, I'll say who I think is going to win. I'll give a score, but I don't read anything from Vegas because I just don't know how to do it. So I hope that answers that question for you. Question from AMS. Do you think Snead will be working on a deal to get Taylor in Indy? Well, we just talked about that. It's really a question of where the Rams think they are. I don't think they're there. I think the Rams are trying to open the window back up into being a contender, and I don't think that window is going to fling open until maybe next year. But right now, do you see them with Jonathan Taylor? Does he put them over the top against Frisco? Does he put them over the top against Philly? Does he put them over the top against Detroit? You have to consider Detroit now. And my other problem is I don't like giving away draft picks for 24-year-old running backs who are close to 2,000 carries. There's a lot of mileage on Jonathan Taylor. And just because he wears number 28 doesn't mean he's Marshall Faulk. And so I wouldn't put anything past Snead, but I'd be surprised if the Rams really thought their window was open to make a move for Jonathan Taylor, because he also wants dough. He wants a new contract. He's going to renegotiate. And I don't think the Rams have that money this year, but they're going to have it obviously next year. So my first instinct is no, but you know what? It is McSnead. And so in that sense, you never know. All right. Thank you for the questions, guys. I do appreciate it. And Jordan Love is not McLovin' it. He should. He's a good football player, and Green Bay will figure it out. But I think they're a few steps away. And I don't want them to figure it out. I want that win in Lambeau. I want the win in Indy this week. College football games this weekend. I'm excited. Utah and Oregon State tonight. That should be exciting. I'm looking forward to that one. I don't think Cam Rising is playing. Ready to watch DJ, former Clemson quarterback. I don't even want to pronounce his last name. But ready to see that game. I think that game is in Corvallis. And then tomorrow you got Georgia Auburn, which any other time would be great. Not a big deal this year. USC at Colorado, which we talked about. Marshawn Lloyd. Kansas at Texas. Texas should win this one. Kansas is ranked about 24th. But Kansas is dangerous. They aren't your old, your mom's Jayhawks, right? And Texas had some struggle against Baylor. And so that'll be interesting to see. I still think Texas wins. LSU at Ole Miss. And the game that interests me most is Notre Dame at Duke, right? That's a 4:30 start. That's a late game, I think, on Saturday. And so I am anxious to see Notre Dame at Duke, although I think I'm at a wedding rehearsal that day. Okay, Rams-Colts prediction. This is the game that I was focused on at the start of the year as the real start of the Rams season. I projected the Rams to start 0-3 this year. I thought for sure they'd lose in Seattle. Frisco, and Cincy. Of course, that was without Joe Burrow, right? And that was with a healthy Joe Burrow. And here's the funny thing: the Rams could easily be 3-0, right? A couple of mental errors in the Frisco game, and they beat Frisco. And then just some bad fortunate, I don't know, losing focus in Cincy. That game, they only lost by 3 points. Rams have lost 2 games this year by 10 points total. So the doom and gloom folks, hear that. 2 games, 3, they're 1-2. They've only lost those 2 games by a combined 10 points, right? So I expected the Rams to be 0-3, and I circled the Colts game. This is the game the Rams got to win. This is the game the Rams got to win, and it's still the game the Rams have to win. In fact, this is the game I'm going to throw things in my office if the Rams don't win. This is the game that's going to cause me to pace around the room and eat cupcakes when I shouldn't eat cupcakes, eat chips and dip when I shouldn't eat chips and dip, because I'm going to be really worked up, because everything else was kind of like house money. Oh, there I go, the gambling line, right? Everything was like house money then. It wasn't hurting me as much because I expected an 0-3 start. But this Colts game has to be won. And that'll tell you a lot. If the Rams win, if the Rams lose to the Colts, then what the heck are they mortgaging any future assets for Jonathan Taylor for? They're not going to compete this season if you lose to the Colts. You cannot lose to the Colts. The good news is Anthony Richardson is starting instead of Gardner Minshew. I've shared this before. Minshew is a quarterback who knows his limitations. He's a quarterback who's less likely to make the big mistake, and he's more likely to live and be very comfortable in death by 1,000 cuts, where Richardson is more explosive. And I can handle a couple of explosions, him breaking off some long runs, but he's not in a place where he's going to slowly pick you apart and go downfield. And so I'm good with Anthony Richardson starting, but that doesn't mean we should take the Colts lightly. Indy can be run on if the Rams commit to it. Now, people are talking about this line and this defensive line, and it's a good defensive line. You got DeForest Buckner, you're good. You know, they got Kwity Paye on the side there, an edge. They got Samson Ebukam, former Ram there. They've got some talent there. But your grades go up, right? And everyone's talking about PFF, and I appreciate PFF, but it's a baseline that you start with. Their numbers are really good, but look who this defensive line has faced: Jacksonville, Houston, and Baltimore. And that defensive line faced a Baltimore offensive line without Ronnie Stanley at tackle and Tyler Linderbaum at center. So they were going to be successful. This line can be run on if the Rams commit to it, and the defense and the secondary can definitely be passed on. Now, they've shown they can bring a pass rush, but 4 of their sacks came against the Ravens and 7 against Houston. And those Ravens was really disappointing, but of course they didn't have their offensive line. 2/5 of their offensive line was gone. And Houston, we know what Houston is, right? The front 7, they run a 4-3 with linebackers, is solid. But that pass rush has to get there, or that secondary is going to get picked apart. Got to believe Julius Brents, that second-round pick, 45th overall, is going to get more playing time after a solid showing in Baltimore this week. But that secondary, without Stephon Gilmore, Isaiah Rodgers from previous years, that secondary is vulnerable, and the Rams have a shot. For the Rams, it all boils down to Alaric Jackson, right? If Alaric Jackson is right, if that Ram offensive line is the offensive line we saw that was intact from week 1 in Seattle through the first 20 snaps in Cincinnati, on Monday night, then the Rams are going to be more than okay on Sunday. As of right now, offensively, the Colts don't really have an offense, right? The offensive line is okay. We don't know about their left tackle right now, which can open a door for Byron Young. The receivers are okay. Michael Pittman, okay. They're waiting for Alex Pierce, okay. The running back, Moss, he's good. He's okay. And their quarterback, Richardson, can be special, but I think you're only going to see flashes of special in 2023. I like the guy, but it's not going to happen this year. But he'll have flashes, right? Some explosions this year. And this is why I think Gardner Minshew is far more dangerous to the Rams right now than Anthony Richardson. I see the Rams bouncing back in this game. I've slayed my fanboy emotion that caused me to pick the Rams over the Bengals 38-21 on Monday. And I'm going with a very, very sober conservative selection of the Rams winning 28-24. Dwayne Barker, no cupcakes this time. Early game, and cupcake and chip provider will be at SoFi. Oh, all right. Good for you, man. All right. Good for you. Week 3, let's look at that. Lions, Packers. I did pick the Lions. I picked the Lions 31-24. Lions won 34-20. I'm going to claim that one. I chose that one right. Falcons and Jaguars in London. I'm going Jags. Jags just cannot be this bad, right? Dolphins, Bills. I'm going Bills at home. I think the Dolphins being without Jalen Waddle. No, they got Jalen Waddle back. That's serious. I don't know if Jordan Poyer hurts the Bills so much being out, but I think the Bills at home, I think they're going to want to make a statement that, hey, Miami hasn't passed us yet. No pun intended. But if Miami wins, they are clearly a Super Bowl threat, right? They are clearly a Super Bowl threat, and their master plan of planting Taylor Swift in the Kansas City narrative will probably come to fruition in January. Just joking. Vikings, Panthers, 2 teams that are 0-3. Minnesota's mindset should be win, but the question is, do they want to win right now? Do they want to win, or do they want to get in the business of picking up some a high-quality draft pick, because this is Kirk Cousins' last dance, and that might be a good thing. Also, getting back to the Lions-Packers, I just think the world would be a better place if Aiden Hutchinson didn't dance, right? At least not in the arena. At least not when cameras are around. He'd dance with his girlfriend, dance alone in the shower, but not on the football field. And I think Kirk Cousins is in his last dance for the Vikings. But I'm going to go with Minnesota in Carolina this week. Broncos and Bears. Broncos should win this game. They really should. I worry for Sean Payton if Denver loses. Ravens and Browns. I think it could be the best game of the week. It really should be flexed to Sunday night. Even if Deshaun Watson doesn't play, I'm anxious to see DTR. I really am. I'm going to go with the Browns in this one in the Neo Dog Pound. Steelers, Texans. This should be a slam dunk. It's been a slam dunk in my head for a while, but really after the season started and seeing what I'm seeing, I know Steeler fan Rob in Missouri, he's counting on me, and I'm going to go with you, but I do it with great hesitation because the Texans have been playing better than people think, but their offensive line is their weak spot. It is their Achilles, so to speak. And the best offense the Steelers have is TJ Watt in that defense. So I'm going to go with the Steelers in Houston. Buccaneers, Saints, Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans, they'll have their spat. They'll have their biannual duke it out and yell at each other and push and all that kind of stuff. But really, the Saints without Derek Carr, no, it's going to be a Mayfield day, and the Buccaneers win, and that's okay. You know, I'm not down with the Saints. Taxkins, Eagles. I might have given it more thought if the Taxkins didn't roll over and die the way they did against the Bills. So I'm going with the Eagles. At some point, they're going to put it together, and hopefully they do it after they play the Rams. Bengals and Titans. I just don't believe in Tennessee. Somebody says, if they offered you tickets to go see Tennessee, would you take them? Would you take them? I don't know. Yeah. If they offered me full time to do Titan talk, I don't know if I could do it. You know, they need a new quarterback, man. I think they trade Ryan Tannehill, do something, go with Will Levis, go with Malik, do something different. But the Bengals are going to win this game. And just hope Joe Burrow doesn't hurt himself anymore. Raiders, Chargers. If Jimmy G's not playing, this game's already over because I got a feeling Josh McDaniel's going to go with Brian Hoyer. And Brian Hoyer, man, he's the FP Santangelo of the NFL. Bolts will survive and win this game, but I still have a feeling Let's Go Brandon might have a new meaning very, very soon. Patriots 1-2 going against the Cowboys 2-1. Yeah, Belichick could pull something, but I think Dallas is going to be really desperate because they know what it means to their season if they lose this game. Everyone's talking about Zeke's return, but you know, does Zeke have enough in him? I think James Conner has more juice with the Cardinals than Zeke does in his legs. I think the Cowboys are going to win this game, but a Dallas loss at home would be a crusher. And please, oh please, let that happen. Cardinals 49ers. I do not expect an Arizona victory unless Katie Hobbs is counting the points, but the Cards can be physical. And we want Frisco collecting bruises, aches, and pains all season. We want them beaten up because they play physical too, and those bruises and bumps and everything, they do start to accumulate. Sunday night, why do we have to watch this? We just want to flex out. But if KC loses for some reason, do people start hashtag fire Taylor Swift? That's my question. And it could work out for everybody, right? Chiefs lose, Taylor Swift gets the boot, Chiefs get their narrative back, Taylor gets a great song to write. There we go, right? I'm going with the Chiefs on Sunday night. Monday, Seahawks Giants, another not so great game, but I'm going Seahawks. The Giants again, really? It's like I've paid for every Giant game. It just always pops up, right? Now I know it helps the Rams if New York wins, but the Giants are like a suffering animal or a worn down career politician. Put them out of their misery. Send them to the farm. Get them out of here. So I'm going Seahawks there. First week I was 9-7. Last 2 weeks I've been 10-6, 10-6, and now we are going into week 4. On this date in Ram history, the Rams fired Scott Linehan in 2008 as HC, named Jim Haslett interim. They fired Linehan after going 0-4. They went to the break, came back, won 2 games, beat the Redskins, beat the Cowboys, and then lost everything else afterwards. But here's the interesting thing about Scott Linehan, okay? In 2006, the team went 8-8. The Rams draft picks that year were Ty Hill, Joe Kloffenstein, Claude Roten, John Alston, and Dominic Byrd, the former USC tight end. Those were all picks inside the top 100, all right? In 2007, the Rams went 3-13, and the picks inside the top 100 were Adam Carricker, Brian Leonard, and Jonathan Wade. The team went 3-13. In 2008, after an 0-4 start, that draft before the start of that season was Chris Long, Donnie Avery, and John Greco. That's 11 picks in the top 100, one hit. And I like Chris Long. And even though 2008 was not a great NFL draft class, the Rams took Long second overall. They did miss out on Matt Ryan, and later in the first round on Dwayne Brown, who is still playing at left tackle, right? He's been to 5 Pro Bowls, and maybe he could have locked up that left tackle spot until Andrew Whitworth arrived in 2017. I know it's all hindsight, but at least Dwayne Brown would have gotten us not thinking about left tackle for a long time. Then you get bookended with Rob Havenstein, then you got something. Just something to think about. That Rams GM was a guy named Jay Zygmunt, and Jay Zygmunt was the Rams GM all 3 of those drafts, and he resigned in December, right after week 15, or week 17 if you count the bye. December 22nd of 2008, never to be heard from again, and he shouldn't be. So keep that in mind. On this date in 2015, the Rams waived Isaiah Peed, a second-round pick out of Cincinnati in 2012. Now, you might say, what's the big deal about that? He was just a bust second-rounder. The Rams had some bust second-rounders themselves recently. Well, the Rams swapped the 45th pick to move back. They sent the 45th pick to Chicago. Rams took the 50th pick and then a 5th-round pick in the same draft that year in 2012. And so the Bears moved up, and they took a wide receiver named Alshon Jeffrey, who played 9 years, 475 catches, 46 touchdowns, had a great postseason in 2017 with the Eagles and got a Super Bowl ring. We got Isaiah Peed. And the 5th-round pick was a guy named Rokavius Watkins, and he was gone by 2013. Peed was waived on this day in 2015. And so it's really interesting because the Bears had Alshon Jeffrey. We had Kenny Britt. We had Tavon Austin, right? Just to kind of let you know. Wouldn't it have been kind of nice to have a little Alshon Jeffrey paired up next to maybe Danny Amendola? Maybe some of those Ram quarterbacks back then might have had a shot. Maybe might have had a shot. Pete played 4 years in the NFL, 3 with the Rams. All told, he had 30 carries, 100 yards, 15 catches, and 0 touchdowns. So I look back at the Linehan era, and I'm very anti-Scott Linehan, but maybe Linehan deserves a little slack because his GM, Jay Zygmunt, certainly didn't help him. And I think that's about where we're going to stop today. 49 minutes, man. That's a long show. You guys that stuck with me for a long time, you deserve a stone groove.
It was a stone groove, my man.
Yes, it was. AMS, did the Rams extend Higbee? And if so, what does this mean for the Ram backup tight ends? I shared AMS that it's not an outrageous contract. 3 years, potentially 30 million. That's not a whole lot. I'm sure it could also be negotiated on down. My problem is Higbee's age. He turns 31 January 1st before this season is over. He's not a great tight end. And my issue was more like, when do we upgrade? In terms of the other tight ends, I talked about Bryson Hopkins. His clicks have gone down. He only's had I think two snaps last week. He hasn't had a target since week 1. So I don't think the Rams are committed to any of these backup tight ends. Davis Allen hasn't even played a snap on offense. So, all right, cool. I think we're there. Tim Burns, thank you so much. AMS, I hope that answered your question. Mid-Valley Sports, congratulations. We'll see you down the road. And AG, thank you so much for clicking on, and everyone else that's there. Let us know you're there. Please hit like, subscribe, tell your friends to help us out, get our footprint here and on Spotify. We are barely a blip on Spotify, and we're hoping to capture something in that market as well. All right, I'm Joe Terosian. Thank you so much for clicking on. God bless. We will talk to you soon.